All right, guys, we're going to do a quick walkthrough on our tonight's class, which is Thursday, November the 6th, session 4, building up on the stuff we've already seen about how to create a basic Android app, how Kotlin connects to the layout, activity, UI files, and the other basic skills we've learned. So the lab sheet we're going to start with tonight is something we're going to be building up with over the next several classes, which is the Flower Shop. So tonight we're going to start by making a user registration screen, and then that will build up in later classes to putting some back-end data storage behind it. So let's get to work, right? You can read through this by yourself, but here's the code you're going to need. Now, a couple of new things you have not seen before, they're all in the PowerPoint. So we're going to see about something called making a two-screen app, which in the future could build up to more than two screens. But the key thing we need here is to understand the concept of intents, right? So later we're going to work with implicit intents, which gets us to services on the Android phone, such as your phone dialer and your open a web page. That's not for right now. Right now we're going to work with explicit intents, which is how we connect two screens together. So by the end of class tonight, you're going to learn how data moves between screens, and then later on we'll get to other things like the phone dialer, but let's just concentrate on two-screen app moving data between screens using intents. So every screen is its own mini app, so it's going to have an activity main, or might be called by a different name, and then we're going to create a second activity here, which is going to be the confirmation page, right? So let's start by getting our code up and going. So you can join me over here on the code sheet. In future classes, we will type the code out, but I think tonight, because we're going to be dealing with several new concepts, and I want your brain focusing on the concepts, right? Typing out code is good, and we'll do it starting from tomorrow, but from tonight, we're just going to study and analyze provided code. So let's start by making our app now, and let's call it Flower Shop 2-Screen Project. And we're going to go with empty views activity always. Now, once you get started, wait several seconds for the build Gradle process to complete, because initially you won't see certain of the files, right? If I were to go right now and look for activity main XML, it would not be there until my update process is finished. So let's let that take its time and run. And now we see that we have the standard files. Now you guys have already seen activity main XML, which is where we put your logic code. You've seen this is where you put your UI screens, your layout activity XML. Something you have not seen yet, and it's going to start to be important now, is Android Manifest XML. So let's start by taking a couple of seconds to study that. Now, Android Manifest XML is the general manager. It's the big boss of the big bosses of your Android application. And you haven't touched it yet, because if you're just making a one-screen app, your code generator takes all of that for you. So here's your main activity, and it's already there, and that's the end of the story. However, now that we're going to be making another activity, we need to put it in here. And let's go and do that right now, because when you get your app going, you might be a little bit excited, you might forget, then your app will crash, and you'll be all sad. So let's go and take a look at that. So here's some stuff you can go and read about Android Manifest XML and what it does. But the main thing we need to do right now is to add this next activity we're going to put, which is the name of the file. We need to add that to your Android Manifest XML. Yeah. So here on slide 13 is what your Android Manifest XML looks like. So we're going to go and add that right there, right above the activity stanza. So there's your main activity. So let's go and get Android Manifest XML. And let's type that in. Right, so there's your main activity stanza, the one you got out of the box when you set up your project. So now we'll say activity, and the name is confirmation activity. Now normally that would show up in your drop-down list from your code assist. We haven't made it yet, so it's not there. So let's type it in. And that's pretty much all you need to do. Just remember to close off that stanza. XML, sections of an XML file are called stanzas, right? Just like poetry has stanzas. That's a term we're going to be using. And we're getting a little error because that file's not there yet. So save and close, and let's go and make that now. Let's go ahead and start with our layout screens because that gives you a hard target visual on what you're going to have to write your code towards. So now pretty much standard what you've seen. However, there's a couple of new widgets we're going to need to put here. And once again, just for tonight, we're going to copy and paste and study and analyze the existing code, make your eyes and your fingers and your brain and your thinking familiar with them. And then tomorrow we're going to type it out from the beginning once you have a mental familiarity and expectation of where this should be going. Because if you're going to learn anything new, it's always a good practice to make yourself familiar first and then drill into the details. So here's our updated layout file for our main screen, the first one that shows when you get it up and going. So you've already seen in earlier classes, you've seen about radio buttons. So here we're going to create a input field for our new user to enter their name. And they can enter their phone number. And they can have a language choice of English or French with radio button. And then checkbox if they want to opt into SMS text notifications. And then a button to register, that is to submit their information. So go ahead and take a couple of seconds to get that going. Pause the video, and then we'll continue. Now we're going to make a new layout for our confirmation file, which is coming up, right? We haven't done that yet, but in a couple of seconds we will. See that file right there? Oh, actually I haven't created it yet, but let's go ahead and make that. So we're going to say right click, new, layout resource file. And we're going to call it activity confirmation. And everything else here is okay, so just accept the defaults and click OK. Now you've already seen that there's a couple of ways to look at your layout. You can look at it in design view or in code view, or you could look at them both together. Well, I don't have anything there yet, so it's not showing. Anyway, let's go ahead and update our code and our activity confirmation. So here we're going to put a text view, which is just pumping back out whatever the user entered in the previous screen. Okay, save that. Now let's write the Kotlin code. So now we're going to start by writing this new service file, right? This is a service. It's another Kotlin file, and it's going to generate the screen for the confirmation. So let's go ahead and create a new Kotlin file with this name. Same directory as main activity. Press the enter key to accept it. And for right now, let's just copy and paste the code over. So here you've already seen that imports are how we connect our code to the Android runtime system. Bundle in particular is a really important one that gives you access to your underlying operating system if you're using the emulator in Windows or Mac or on an Android operating system. And here we're creating our class. Here we're creating variables for the values that are going to be entered in the XML. And that's about all we're doing. So let's go and dump that over there. Now, main activity is going to have to get a little bit of an update, right? We're going to have to sort of ramp up the functionality. So once again, we'll get it running, and then we'll study it in the debugger to see what it's doing. But pay attention from now to this object intent. Intent is what's going to transmit the information like a courier, like a FedEx truck. It's going to drive it from the first screen to the second screen. And one thing to be careful of, because sometimes in code, depending on the installation of the machine that was written in, it might have a different directory name. So here we say that our package name is com example flowers shop to screen, which is correct there, so that's good. Just double check that that's right. And similarly here for your confirmation activity. All right, so let's save and close all of that. And now we're going to we've also dumped some logcatting, which you saw the other day. That's pretty cool to see the progress of how it moves along. So now let's make sure our emulator is running, and let's try running this app. So my emulator is running. I looked at it before. Now, a couple of things to bear in mind, not so much now, but as we get into more complicated stuff later with Google Maps and Google location APIs and stuff, sometimes your code will initially not work, but then the mistake gets cached, right? The way your Android emulator works is it might store temporary configuration files. Bottom line is sometimes if your app is seriously messed up, you may need to delete the Android virtual device and make a new one, but that's not going to happen now. So let's go ahead and start our app running. So I'm going to click here on Run. And make sure you're in the context of main activity so your Android Studio runtime knows which activity you want to run. So we'll say Run. And we'll keep Logcat open. I'm going to erase whatever was there before. And go. Oh, by the way, it's generally a good idea to frequently do sync project with Gradle files. Sync project with Gradle files, and for what we're doing right now is pretty simplistic. See, I didn't even get any update messages down here in my status bar. Oh, it did very quickly, but there was nothing to do. Now, I've already written this app before, so my Android Studio, it's already gone to Maven, and it's pulled down a bunch of helper plugin code. For you, first time doing it, it may take several minutes, right? Just so you may want to do that before class to get that done. Now, there's another way to sync here, and as far as I can tell, they're both exactly the same. I've looked into the Android documentation site. basically, we can talk about it in a future class if anybody is interested, not really on the course outline. But what's happening when you do that is you're engaging something called the Kotlin Build Tools API. Any of you guys or ladies who have the serious intention to become an Android developer, ask me about it and I'll give you some more information, but it's a pretty big deal when you're dealing with real world complexity apps. All I'm going to say about that for now. So let's go ahead and try running. And there's my emulator starting up in a couple of seconds. So you pay attention to your status bar down there. It's building, it's running the Kotlin Tools API to pull together all the plugins and sort of configure them in the right way. Launching successfully installed, yay. Oh, now sometimes it might happen because the way we're doing it now is to say run your emulator in another window. So my emulator was actually hidden way at the back. I had to do Alt-Tab to find it, but there it is. So pretty good. Train your eyes to recognize the logcat messages, by the way. A lot of it's not relevant to us, but just become familiar. Now I'm going to clear this out because I just want to see stuff related to the running of my app. And when I set up your project, which your project is going to be very similar to tonight's lab, by the way. It's called the Community Services app. Your project is, not doing it now, but just so you know, your project is going to involve making an app which users can add information about their community, daycares, dog parks, and stores, and whatever medical services, this and that. And then it's going to have panels so they can view the website or they can phone the service provider. So anyway, one of the requirements of your project is going to get you to give me some screenshots of the logcat just so you get into the habit of making that part of your practice. All right, let's go now. So let's view our. There we go. Now you see I'm trying to enter information here, and because I'm also using Camtasia, my system's a little bit loaded down, but in a couple of seconds that'll catch up. Oh, there we go. Now you see, look what happened. As soon as I started typing there, now it's dumping out some information about what I've done. It just took a couple of seconds till my system caught up and let me have system resources for this. So we'll put my dog's name in there. Now, one of your activities in class, I'm going to ask you to make an extension for language to Bichonese. Bichon's being a kind of dog, so for right now we'll say Peanut speaks French, and he wants to opt into SMS text messaging. Another thing we're going to do as your lab work in class to extend, you're going to put a 2x2 grid of images, and user can also select their avatar. As you've already seen yesterday, how to programmatically change images in an image well, or image views they call it in Android. iOS is image well, this is image view. So anyway, let's go ahead and click register and let's pay attention to what's happening down here. And now it's gone to our second screen and it's just dumping and mirroring back out the information. Seems pretty simple, but once you can move information between screens, that is called using intents, and that is a very powerful pattern. So that's going to be our first lab in class tonight.